The terrorists that kidnapped passengers of the AK-9 Abuja-Kaduna-bound train have released a picture of a newborn baby delivered by one of the pregnant women taken hostage. Arise News can exclusively report that the mother of the baby girl was said to be 8 months pregnant before she and 62 others were abducted by the terrorists on the Abuja-Kaduna train on March 28, 2022. The picture of the baby was released on Wednesday evening by the terrorist group suspected to be Ansaru, a breakaway group of Boko Haram. Clad in a thick pink dress and a light lemon sweater cap, her eyes were closed. The infant looked healthy. Family sources say the terrorists brought in their doctors to attend to the pregnant woman to ensure her safe delivery. Does this not completely boggle the mind? I mean, I'm thankful for the safe delivery of this beautiful baby girl. I'm sure you saw her picture, we blurred it there, but she's absolutely gorgeous. But it's so tragic that she's had to be born in those circumstances. Her family have to see her on this widely circulated picture when the customary thing is for the family to visit a newborn. By now, they should be preparing for a lavish naming ceremony, celebrating the latest addition to their family, and they have been robbed of this. So I do hope that the picture of this innocent, beautiful child is enough to wake our government up from their slumber and ensure that all those captives are released immediately. This is completely unacceptable. It's devastating.
Well, you know, they say, you know that popular phrase that Nigeria happens to people. And when Nigeria happens to you, it's a sign of misfortune. It's a sign of tragedy. It's a sign of how your country has failed you. Now, Nigeria has been failing grown-ups, adults. This is a classic case of Nigeria failing an infant. This young, girl has been born into a country, at a bad moment, and also in a bad place, and also Nigeria has failed her from day one. And the family, the mother, the father, they've been robbed of the joy of having a child. Because can you imagine a child remembering in the future that she was born in captivity? So these terrorists, they are no longer abducting the living, they are also abducting the unborn. They are also abducting the dead. So if you are in Nigeria, where are you safe? You are not safe inside a railway, inside a train. You are not safe inside an aircraft. You are not safe on the road. You are not even safe in the womb. Because you could end up being born in the kidnapper's den. This is what makes it truly tragic. And, looking at the picture of that young lady, she just looks like, look, this is exactly where we are in Nigeria at this moment, where even the unborn are not safe. Well, okay, I agree with you, absolutely, that this should be a wake-up call for government. When the train was hijacked, was bombed on March 28th, I think it's exactly a month today, there were 2 pregnant women in that train. The woman that has now been delivered of a baby, she was 8 months pregnant. Almost exactly 1 month to the day, she has now been delivered of a baby girl. And this is one reason why government has to do everything possible to rescue those over 160 persons that are still in the custody of those kidnappers. So you have 2 pregnant women. One has now given birth now. There is another one that is also there. There are toddlers there. Little children, 3 years old, 4 years old. Nigeria has also treated them badly because Nigeria cannot protect them. You have sick persons, people who have hypertension, diabetes, people who have cancer, who have no access to their drugs. And in all of this, yes, as I pointed out previously, we're told the DG, State Security Service, and the Director General of the Nigerian Intelligence Agency had made some efforts to see how they can help, but nothing has come out of it. The families of the affected persons are saying that they are even ready to pay ransom. The government has taken a position that they are not going to negotiate with terrorists. The other day, a bill passed was it the 3rd reading in the Senate to outlaw the payment of ransom. You can just imagine the agony that the family of this woman who has given birth is going through, and the agony that all the families that are involved in this tragic development, are going through, simply because Nigeria is not moving. The governor of Kaduna had to say, look, government knows where these people are. We have seen Israelis rescuing people. We have seen Americans, documented evidence of Americans going even to rescue one person. For more than 1 month, Nigeria cannot rescue over 160 persons. And nobody is giving any information. Everybody is hiding under the fact that, oh, this is a security matter. We don't want to jeopardize the lives of the persons involved. Okay, but at least let us see an effort being made. Now the terrorists have asked for prisoner swap, right? That was what we discussed yesterday. Well, the government may not, want that kind of option because that will amount to encouraging terrorists and subjecting the Nigerian state to blackmail. But states that put their feet down and say, we're not doing prisoner swap, we're not paying ransom, they will have other, levels, other mechanisms for protecting the average citizen. So this young lady now, every time we pray that eventually these persons are released and they survive, and the young girl who has just been given birth lives long enough. But what will she remember? She'll remember every day she celebrates her birthday hereafter that she was born in a kidnapper's den, in the midst of criminals and other hapless Nigerians, who are victims along with her. She came, into this world on this note. I think it's really very sad, although every new life should be celebrated. But we're celebrating with a tinge of not joy, but sadness.
Devastation. Goodness. On to the next story. Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, has announced his intention to contest the governorship of Kebbi State in the 2023 general election. Malami made the declaration at an event which featured members of the Kebbi chapter of the All Progressives Congress, APC, with Governor Atiku Bagudu in attendance. Malami said, quote, "It is not part of my tradition or religion to declare that I will contest without consulting you, the people. If you have accepted, then from my own end, I have accepted to contest." The development comes after months of speculation over whether the AGF would contest the Kebbi governorship. Well, I think that was a badly kept secret there, that he did want to contest, and now he's formally declared his intention to do so. And it is noteworthy that the governor, Bagudu, was present because, there's been a lot of rifts within the Kebbi State chapter of the APC. There's been Governor Bagudu's sect and obviously Senator Aliero's sect. So obviously we all know where the Attorney General falls into that. However, I think overshadowing this slightly is that thorny issue of Section 8412. You know exactly what I'm going to say before I say it, of the Electoral Act. Will he or will he not adhere to that? He did get that court judgment, which in his favor, which is being appealed. But should he not, for the sake of, I don't know, erring on the side of caution, resign, as his party has now issued a guideline that all political office holders should resign, just to err on the sake of caution? Because imagine APC throwing their weight, throwing their cash, their structure behind candidates, having them win, hopefully, and only to now be challenged in court and that election completely nullified. All for what? Because you were stubborn and refused to resign. I think it's a small price to pay in terms of caution to just resign. We all know what the Constitution said. We had the Minister of State for Education, Honorable Wajiuba, yesterday citing the Constitution and saying that it's very clear that he only needs to wait for, what, 30 days and then resign. But I don't know why they're taking this risk, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, okay. We have clarity now. The Attorney General of the Federation has said he would run for the governorship in Kebbi State. We have other ministers who in appointive positions in that cabinet who are also running at other levels. You have Chris Ngige, doctor, Minister of Labor and Employment, who wants to be president. You have Minister Rotimi Amechi, Minister of Transportation, who also wants to be president. And, you have all these persons saying they are interested in the elective positions. But the controversy has been about Section 8412 of the Constitution. Yes, Emeka Wajoba, you already mentioned him, Minister of State, is also interested in the presidency. Now, Section 8412 of the Electoral Act, which is a matter of litigation in the courts, the National Assembly having gone on appeal through its counsel, Kayode Ajula, to seek the leave of the court in Umuahia, and now, they filed an appeal. So we see how that is resolved. Now, some of these other persons who are holding appointed positions are now saying that Section 8412 of the Electoral Act is a subsidiary legislation, and that the Constitution is a ground norm. And as of this moment, what prevails is Section 66 of the 1999 Constitution. And Section 66 just says you have to resign your position 30 days before the election, not before the primaries. Okay, but Section 8412 is saying you have to resign even before the primaries, so that you don't use the fact of being in an appointed position as an advantage over and above other aspirants who are interested in that position. So the fear now is that these persons who are quoting the Constitution, like Emeka Nwajoba, who is saying that, look, what he's doing is in line with the Constitution. And until the Constitution is amended, a subsidiary legislation cannot be superior to the ground norm, to the basic law, which the Constitution is. So that's the argument. But all of this will be tested in court. But the argument we've always put up is that, okay, why not play safe? Okay? And the other issue, of course, is that these persons, they know, of course, that even if you want to amend the Constitution now, when are you going to do it? I was a panelist at a seminar yesterday, organized by PEAR, an NGO, where we were discussing the prospects of the amendment in the 24 states, required 24 states, 2/3 of the 36 states across the country, of the 48 clauses in the constitutional amendment process, the 48 that were agreed upon by the National Assembly. And our major concern was that, look, would these houses of assembly members, would they act? Now that everybody is distracted, now that everybody wants a second or third term, when are they going to be? Whereas there are very important, provisions in that recommendation that has now been sent to the state houses of assembly by the National Assembly. Some of them really, with regard to local government autonomy, judiciary autonomy. So we're in a kind of bind, and that's what these appointees are hiding under and saying that they don't have to resign because the Constitution does not say resign, days before the primaries. That is only the contentious Section 8412 of the Electoral Act 2022 that is at play. So they must have been talking to their lawyers. And election time, don't be surprised, everybody becomes a lawyer. Many of them bathroom lawyers, having been involved in election matters, and you'll be surprised. Some of these bathroom lawyers, they will insist that they know what they are quoting. So that's the situation in which we have found ourselves. But that's just the way it is. So now we have certainty that Abubakar Malami wants to run for Kebbi state governorship. The only problem is the distraction. If you have up to about 4 ministers who are running for elective positions, what time do they have left now to do the work? So, and that was why the point was made at some point on this program that maybe President Buhari should follow the example of some of the state governors, Sokoto, Delta, other states, who have asked persons who are interested in political positions to resign so that they can go and concentrate on their campaign. So there is the legal part of it that we can, argue over and over about the Constitution and subsidiary legislation. But how about performance of government? Except President Buhari has resolved that, okay, the government is already lame duck. We have just 7 months left. Anybody can do what they like. But I guess there is still a lot that can be done in 4 months. We have in the Ministry of Education the matter of ASU to resolve. So if you have the Minister of Labor and Employment pursuing a presidential ambition, the Minister of State for Education, who is also likely to be involved in how to resolve that matter, who is going to attend to urgent matters of national importance. So there's that administrative part of it beyond legalese.
And I tend to also not couch these things in moral terms when talking about politicians, no offense. But it's purely practical. They're only 24 hours in a day. When you're busy campaigning, you cannot attend to the work, to your portfolio, unfortunately. Well, that's all our news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rota Sadiri, Michael Wilson, and Adeswa Omoran to give us updates on Africa and global business and COVID-19 pandemic across the world. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Good morning. Shares in Asia Pacific really rising on the back of what happened to the Nasdaq yesterday. Tech stocks up very, very slightly. The Nasdaq yesterday up 3%, so that was really what's driving everything. Hong Kong Hang Seng up about 2%. Mainland China stocks up about 0.3%. The Chinese Politburo actually meets today to talk about the ways in which they're going to try to stimulate the economy. So shares of technology stocks jumped, Tencent, Alibaba, and the rest of them up. Shares in Samsung, again, we had those results yesterday. They're doing quite well in South Korea. Contrast that with Huawei, China's giant telecoms company. First quarter revenue tumbling by nearly 14%. That's down to fewer smartphone sales. Let's go to the United States and recap what's going on there. Nasdaq futures side, Amazon and Apple retreating very slightly. We have a look at their earnings. I'll bring you the details of that in a second. Nasdaq futures falling, as I said, following that big extravaganza yesterday of big tech earnings. Futures led to the tech-heavy index down about 1.5% this morning. A big reversal, really, for stocks which posted big gains in regular trading. Dow Jones up 640, that's almost 2% basically, which actually is quite good. And a reminder from yesterday on those on the US GDP figures, falling at 1.4% pace over the beginning of the year, much below market expectations of a 1% gain. Declines in fixed investment, defence spending, and a record trade imbalance weighed on growth there. Now, is it noise or is it a signal? That's the real question. I'm not quite sure about that, but the real question is whether the Fed or not can engineer a soft landing as it increases interest rates, as it probably will next week. Apple shares, now here are the big ones. Apple shares dip after the company warns of possible 8 billion hit from supply constraints. Revenue up, but still that warning actually hitting investors. Amazon shares falling on a bleak forecast, the slowest growth since the dot-com bust in 2001. Online sales on that dipped 3%. Company reported a 7.6 billion loss on its investment in the electrical car maker Rivian. And Intel's also been a bit downbeat, basically because of, well, all the kind of things you're thinking about. You know about the Ukraine war and also China lockdown threat. PC sales, that took about 5% off the Amazon share price. Elon Musk, as he continues his pursuit of Twitter, will be the most indebted CEO in the United States. 2/3 of Elon Musk's financing of that $44 billion bid for Twitter to take it private. A lot of that will come out of his own pocket. He's got $250 billion, but much of his wealth is tied up in Tesla stock. So we can see, thought to be spending, or at least liquidating about $900 billion worth of that. We'll see how that goes. That's the ongoing saga of Musk and Tesla and Twitter and so on. Let's turn our attention to the EU. One leading Germany energy firm, Uniper, is ready to meet the Russian pay demand. It's going to buy Russian gas using a payment system which will convert euro payments into rubles. That says it will undermine EU. The rest of the EU is saying, a lot of them are saying, in fact, that will undermine EU sanctions. The company itself is saying, and I quote what they're saying: "We consider a payment conversion compliant with sanctions law and the Russian decree to be possible. For our company and for Germany as a whole, it's not possible to sustain without Russian gas in the short term. That would have dramatic consequences for our economy. And a lot of Europeans are feeling exactly the same about that. As far as the UK is concerned, some of the biggest property investors are buying into the life sciences sector. And that's quite good for the future. But right now, cost of living spiral. So construction, hospitality are adding to a rising list, a 19% rise in businesses, apparently saying that they are in acute financial distress. The Chancellor here, Rishi Sunak, is saying that it would be silly, as he puts it, to provide more support to tackle rising energy bills, because we don't know what the caps are going to be on energy bills in the autumn. Opposition parties, of course, have called for an emergency budget, but he's saying he's wanted to see how prices actually settle down. As far as the oil price is concerned, as you'd expect, the fears on bans have lifted oil prices very slightly overnight. Again, looking at this day by day, I don't think helps us a great deal. I've got Brent crude at 107, WTI at 105. And finally, as we head into the weekend, people are looking to gold again as a safe haven. It's not anywhere near that $2,000 an ounce barrier, but it's up to, I've got it at about $1,904 an ounce. So gradually, risk is back on again, as you'd expect. That's the global view.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, you made a point about Uniper, the German energy firm, but it looks like other energy firms in Germany are likely to do the same. Germany gets about 40% of its supplies from Russia, Russian oil and gas. Now, do they have an option in this matter, considering the fact that Russia is a gas station of the world? Yes, other EU countries can express concern, but do they really have an alternative? Maybe Italy, yeah, maybe Spain, but most of the other countries, are so vulnerable. Yesterday also, I was talking about Bulgaria, how Bulgaria is protesting about breach of contract, but they seem also to be more or less helpless in the matter. The only country that has shown greater confidence is Poland, because Poland says it has other options. It's going to get oil, gas from Lithuania, from Norway, and from elsewhere. So do they have an option? The second issue, yesterday we talked about IMF, about Central African Republic, the second country to adopt Bitcoin. And I know you are very skeptical about Bitcoin. And the IMF has reacted in the last 24 hours, the same way it reacted to El Salvador, saying that, look, it's risky. And, African countries should not think that this is a cure-all solution by relying on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, because if they don't have a strong payment system and they don't have the right governance framework, it will just be like, committing suicide. Finally, Elon Musk, will he change his mind? Tesla shares have dropped consistently since he acquired that 9.2 stake in Twitter. Yes, there is a clause in the deal that if either parties, either Elon Musk or Twitter, reneges on the contract, there will be a penalty of $1 billion. But Elon Musk has been known to change his mind on many occasions. And even if he doesn't change his mind, he wants free speech. How is he going to ensure free speech in China, where, there's no love lost between him and the authorities in China?
Elon Musk, first of all, then. I have no idea what his plans are. I feel as though he says so much, and you're absolutely right, Doctor. He does, he changes his mind, and we have to cope with that. I think he's too far down the road as far as Twitter's concerned, because he's actually nailed his colours to the mast there, hasn't he? Saying that he is the epitome of free speech, as you quite rightly observe. How that free speech actually plays in countries like China, don't know. So there's a long, long way to go. And we don't even know what kind of business model he has planned for Twitter. It hasn't gone the way of a lot of social platforms at the moment. It makes losses. It hasn't really got its business sorted out. Maybe it will under Musk. I simply do not know the answer to those kind of questions. I think you're absolutely right to focus on what's happening with energy in Europe. It all depends on countries actually who are wholly dependent, largely dependent, or not quite as dependent on Russia as far as its energy exports are concerned, as in energy exports from Russia. And I think that's what we're going to see. I wouldn't actually put aside the fact that the EU as a whole is sort of trying to look for alternative sources, but individual companies are not going to suddenly stop importing gas. I mean, all right, we'll see through the summer and the rest of it, but as soon as the winter, the autumn and winter starts to bite again, and industry needs it, never mind people being warm in their houses, industry needs this to keep going. I think that the law of diminishing returns will apply to this. It'll take a long time before the whole of Europe actually feels itself free from that sort of Russian import. So at the moment, it's country by country, and that's annoying a lot of people within the EU. But again, everybody's speaking from their own particular their own particular points of view, and I think there's a lot of fracture about opinion actually taking place in the European Union as we speak. As far as Bitcoin's concerned, yeah, I mean, I don't change my skepticism about it. It might be all right, but I feel as though it needs to be regulated. It's not a safe place to put investment. I'm not sure about Central African Republic. I mean, I did say when we were talking about this the other day, if you really want to find out what happens, go to Argentina and see, never mind El Salvador, but go to Argentina, which is a major economy. And people there simply do not trust what the central bank is doing and feel as though they can do better on their own with Bitcoin or whichever particular cryptocurrency is actually used there. There are adverts in every main street in Buenos Aires saying, use this Bitcoin and so on. They're quite fortunate there because energy costs are high but relatively low, which means that the mining of cryptocurrencies can take place. But I think there are all sorts of caveats at the moment, and what we're seeing is the exceptions, which are Central African Republic, El Salvador, and Argentina, are proving the rule that most people seem, at the moment at least, to be content with central bank currencies.
I want to talk about Rishi Sunak and his silly, in quotes, statement, which does sound very tone deaf given his vast wealth, to tell people, well, I can't help you now, I'll help you later, given the fact that his wife is massively rich and he's just attended this dinner, we're told, where it was £1,000 per head. What's your take on that as an election ploy? I mean, how effective will that be? And on that idea of the windfall tax on energy companies who fail to invest in the UK that's been mooted, do you think that will actually fly? That's quite surprising coming from the Conservative government.
Yeah, it is. I think windfall taxes are very dangerous because what they do is they actually they say this is going to happen at this particular time, and there's not much left for the future. So I like you, I do find it rather surprising that that's come up. As far as tin ears are concerned, yeah, absolutely, of course he has. How can you be more tone deaf than to say be silly? What he's trying to say, but he's not guarding his language properly, is, of course, until we know the full effects of the next price cap on energy, then it would be, I don't think silly is the wrong word. You're absolutely right. I felt exactly the same as you did when I saw that. How does somebody who is so rich and so apparently disconnected from the majority of the not he's supposed to represent actually say something like that? It is what he's saying is it's not a good calculation to do it right now because we don't know what the future holds. But to say it's silly is exactly the sort of tin ear comment that you're absolutely right to observe. I find it quite surprising.
Well, you and me both, Mr. Wilson. Thank you very much. Now, our dependable Rotus Ediri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotus. Good morning,
Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Begin oil and gas. Total Energies is continuing a trend that we've seen over the past decade in Nigeria, where super majors, oil and gas majors, are exiting shallow water and onshore assets. It's understood that Total Energies is divesting, I think it's their 10% stake. It's a minority stake in a firm that controls about, I think it's 20 or so of these assets onshore. I think Shell is also entertaining bids from local companies for its 30% stake. Total Energies CEO, Mr. Puyan, he said that in a conference call yesterday with journalists and analysts as well that were on that conference call. So, you know, again, there's the issues of insecurity, there's the issues of vandalism. They're looking to all move to more, you know, deep water areas, which, you know, should take them away from some of the challenges that they are facing. Of course, remember that federal government is doing what it can to clamp down on oil theft, and a number of security officials are in the Niger Delta region as we speak, you know, with Operation Octopus Grip and so on and so forth. But that's what we're seeing with Total. Remember, I mean, the most recent case of oil assets being sold to mostly indigenous players was ExxonMobil selling, you know, well, I know the NNPC has gotten involved there, so that's still up in the air, but ExxonMobil selling up $1.2 billion worth of assets to Seplat. You know, so that's what's going on there with respect to Total Energies exiting. We move to, I believe, from oil and gas to Bitcoin. The Central African Republic has adopted Bitcoin as a legal tender, becoming the second country in the world after El Salvador to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. The chief of staff to, is it President Touare? He says that it makes Central African Republic one of the boldest countries in the world in making this decision and doing this. Now, the IMF has frowned on this. The IMF says that this is not advisable and that it doesn't make up for some of the challenges that the countries are facing. And my goodness, the Central African Republic, when they talk about challenges, that is, despite agricultural resources, mineral resources, it is, of course, a landlocked nation, but bottom of the pyramid in terms of human capital development, just serial violence in that country. Poverty at what, 71%. Maternal mortality rates are really, really high. The country is just going through a number of things. And so what the IMF is saying, in fact, we should have a quote from Abebe, is it Seasi, who's a member of the African department at the IMF. He says that it's really important to not see such things as Bitcoin, adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, as a panacea for economic challenges our countries face. You have to make sure that the legislative framework, in terms of the transparency of financial flows, the government framework around it is all robustly in place. We know about Bitcoin and the issue of transparency, how opaque the transactions are. So if you're going to be a government that's running, you know, trying to aim for current account surpluses and so on and so forth, and trying to just get a hold on your financial flows, is Bitcoin the best choice? El Salvador, I mean, that experiment hasn't really worked out for them because where is Bitcoin now? 39,000, it's dipped. Although it kind of picked up, I don't know, for some reason when Elon Musk bought Twitter. But again, that's the IMF's position. Bebe Siasi, who is the director of the African department at the IMF. We move to public holidays. I really want to get your take from you both on this. This is a headline from Business Daily. It's a newspaper out of Kenya. And they can see the headline there, businesses face billions in shillings in losses over the 5-day weekend. And I think we can take a look at the 5-day weekend for Kenya. So today is a public holiday. They are commemorating the passing of former President Mwai Kibaki. So today is a holiday. You got Saturday, you got Sunday. Sunday is Labor Day, but that's being moved over to Monday. And then you've got Eid al-Fitr, the religious holiday, on Tuesday. So and of course, Labor Day is not unique to Kenya. The Eid holiday is not unique to Kenya either. A number of other countries are having these holidays. But you know, you include Friday today, and basically, in fact, we should have a headline from The Guardian for Nigeria back from 2000. Yeah, this was 2017. Nigeria loses 9.7 billion naira to public holidays in 1 year. This was back in 2017. They basically just looked at the labor force multiplied by man hours, and then it was as far as productivity rates. The productivity rates over a number of days is where they come out to this figure. Now, the economic analysis is all fine and good, but then what are you going to do about it? Are you going to cancel a public holiday, especially a religious holiday, and be accused? Yeah. So, you know, it costs money, and in terms of productivity and so on. And even when there are no public holidays, Nigeria has a productivity problem, as do other countries. So, you know, it's just a really long holiday, and I know I got into a big debate with a number of people on Twitter on this. People are split. So I want to hear what do you think?
Money is in everything.
Money is in everything.
Quite frankly. I think if governments work on impediments such as traffic and security, they will make up for that in productivity, what they lose in public holidays. Yeah. Because you're quite right. What public holiday are you going to cancel? Eid? Let me see you try. Easter? I don't think so. And there's certain cultural markers. Like in the UK right now, the firms there are pushing to have a public holiday to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. Wow. So really, there's certain cultural events that should be celebrated, and I think you can sort of, you know, mitigate those losses in other ways. I do think that you can. I do. That's my take. But I want to talk about Central African Republic. Good heavens.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yes. Why would you follow El Salvador's misadventure? I mean, I think they're aiming at people like you, because according to the El Salvador stats, it's you, the banked, young, male demographic that has keyed into the Bitcoin, really to the exclusion of almost everybody else. Right. And apparently this year, not one download of that El Chivo wallet in the whole of 2022. Even though they're offering $30 worth of free Bitcoin, nobody is biting. Right. So it does tend to suggest a total failure, doesn't it, at this point? It so I don't see why CRA would want to copy that.
They've got the Central African Republic, as I said earlier, they've got issues. But this, as the IMF said, the representative of IMF, this doesn't make things easier for your government to just say you want to switch to Bitcoin. Because remember, this is a volatile asset. It's up one day, it's down tomorrow. Can you imagine putting that as legal tender and then depending on that for the everyday man or woman on the street? It's very risky. So they said it's bold. So we'll see how, as you've calculated El Salvador from now till now. We'll see how CAR how things work out for them. But yeah, it's
Central African Republic has a population of 5.4 million, and it's one of the poorest countries in the world.
It is.
Despite the fact that it is very rich in gold, in other mineral resources. So this is a country that suffers from the resource cost. Very rich, but yet one of the poorest. Yeah. I don't know whether anybody can draw any parallel in that regard. But what they're trying to do, President Faustin Touadéra says that, this is bold. This puts CAR in the same category as one of the boldest and most visionary countries in the world. We've seen the example of El Salvador, where the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender is not working. Mr. Wilson, earlier on the program, drew attention to the example of Argentina, where the people are very skeptical about Bitcoin and the many risks involved in the adoption of cryptocurrency. So I think it's a good thing that the IMF, Obe Selassie, the head of the IMF African Department, came forward to say, look, you must have a very robust payment system. There must be transparency in terms of financial transactions. And you must have the right governance framework for you to even talk about, toying with Bitcoin. And I thought he spoke in order to send a signal to other African countries that, look, don't think that this is an option for you to manage your issues. However, in Central African Republic, CAR, there are other issues. Bitcoin, depends heavily on the internet. Yeah. They don't even have a functional internet system in Central African Republic. So this looks like a trip in the dark. Right. They don't even have the internet. So what are the people going to use, really? And then beyond that, this is an attempt to undermine the CFR. The CFR, the currency that is guaranteed by France and that is tied to the euro. Yep. So this may be a wrong move on the side of the parliament in Central African Republic, and specifically on the part of President Faustin Touadéra. Now, to go beyond that, holidays. Yes, the other day we were talking about, firms asking for extra bank holiday The average number of holidays in the European Union countries is about 11 per year. In the UK, about 7. Even if in all of these instances, some of these holidays are not really observed. But here in Nigeria, yes, The Guardian, it's good you quoted The Guardian. That story, 2017 story, is consistent. We did many editorials in those days complaining about the cost of public holidays in Nigeria, because you more or less just shut down the economy. And for us as journalists, when there's public holiday, we don't get breaking news.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't even get a public holiday.
Exactly. We work every day.
We are chained here.
We have to sit in the office and be scouting for
a story.
Because there's no need. But it's not about the selfishness on our part as journalists. It's about the reality. However, some people benefit from it. People who are into retail and hospitality business, because people come out a lot. But the report that was prepared by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, in the UK, in response to the demand for extra bank holiday, indicated that, in fact, government has been underestimating the amount of losses, you know, when you have so many holidays. So, you know, two sides to it. The retail and hospitality business, restaurants, pubs, you know, they will make money. But when you look at the larger picture, I guess it's the same, you know, in virtually every country. As for Total Energies, yes, everybody is living onshore and shallow waters. Okay, Seplat, I think, got into a deal with ExxonMobil. Yeah. Okay, but these are joint ventures. And the key reason that has been given by Total Energies, by Shell withdrawing from Forcados, right? And ExxonMobil, is this problem with our communities? Kidnapping, vandalism, pipeline vandalism, sabotage, and all of that. So it's not just about Total Energy, you know, energy saying we're moving away from onshore and shallow waters. It's a comment on the security governance situation in Nigeria. The only company that has not moved is the Italians, right? ENI. Yeah. They are the only ones that have not said anything yet. So this is the reality where we are. But I thought you were going to go further and comment in terms of the costs to the Nigerian economy. I know some local players have moved in, you know, but do they have the capacity? You know, that's the question. So what is the corresponding effect in terms of, you know, how it affects us, particularly as we talk all the time about revenue problem. You know, and then you have these people going offshore, you know, where there's a better, you know, production environment.
Well.
Oh dear.
Hey, look, it is what it is. But I have faith in the local players. I have faith in the local players.
Yes, why not? Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now for an update on the COVID-19 pandemic, Adeswa Omoran is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Tunu. Great to be here. Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
I think the only reprieve we get as journalists on public holidays is that from gridlock. When you're in Lagos,
that's about it.
Get to
that's literally it
on a day like this. Okay, let's look at COVID-19 pandemic. At the moment, globally, according to the Johns Hopkins University tally, we have 512 million infections, 6.2 million deaths, and 11.3 billion doses of vaccines. A vast majority of these 512 million people have recovered from the virus. However, there are those who still suffer from long COVID, which is symptoms of COVID long after they've recovered from the disease. It's beginning to become a problem in some parts of the world, and it affects everybody regardless of their age, including children. Southeast Asia and Africa are the two continents or two regions of the WHO currently recording increased infections and deaths from COVID. In Africa, the uptick is largely due to the situation in South Africa, which is now in a fifth wave. Well, here in Nigeria, after 5 days of no reporting on infections, the NCDC yesterday said 31 additional infections had been recorded in the country, and Lagos State, the nation's epicenter of the disease, topped the infection chart with 21 cases out of that 31 reported. No death was recorded in the period. And for vaccination in Nigeria against COVID-19, Well, we now know that 20.5% of eligible population are partially vaccinated. That means they've had one shot of a COVID-19 vaccine available in the country, while 13.6% others have been fully vaccinated. We are moving slowly, perhaps surely. And in the US, right now, only children ages 5 and older can get the COVID-19 vaccine, but that may soon change. Because on Thursday, which is yesterday, Moderna submitted a request to the FDA for emergency use authorization for a low dose, yes, it's actually a 2 low dose shots for kids, and I'm talking about babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. More than 75% of younger children in America have been infected with the coronavirus since the start of the pandemic, and that's according to a U.S. nationwide blood survey released earlier this week. To Beijing. Well, Beijing is closing all city schools indefinitely after 50 new cases were announced yesterday. Students make up more than 30% of the total cases, with clusters linked to 6 schools and 2 kindergartens in an area called Chaoyang. The city of 22 million has ordered 3 rounds of mass testing, with the 3rd round starting today. They also suspended weddings and funerals in Beijing. Well, finally, Taiwan is also seeing its highest COVID-19 outbreak since the beginning of the pandemic. Yesterday alone, the country saw 11,000 new cases, and that's up from 5,100 infections they saw on Monday and 2,900 they saw last week. Back to you guys.
Wow, about the Moderna vaccines for the little children and that footage that you provided there, it does remind you, doesn't it, Adesua, that they are equally vulnerable. We shouldn't make assumptions just because their symptoms are generally not as severe. Because linking that to your story on Beijing, one of the outbreaks in the city has been linked to a kindergarten. So it's actually extremely important. And I just continue to wonder when we are going to get to that point where our entire population can be vaccinated, you know, where the vaccines are actually available for even our children here, because so far that hasn't happened.
Okay, fine. Let's start with China. Now, China is shutting down schools in Beijing. Many parts of China are locked down. Out of about 100 big cities in China, only 13 are not locked down. And, you know, Shanghai and Beijing are particularly important. Shanghai has the biggest port in the world. It's a major manufacturing center, population 25 million. Beijing, population 21 million, also very strategic. And yet, China has had, you know, a vaccination rate of about 90%. Vaccination rate. In Shanghai alone, 62% of persons over 60, you know, have been vaccinated. And yet, China says, unlike other countries of the world, like Taiwan, is going to continue to pursue a zero COVID policy. The total number of infection rate in Beijing, for example, is just 150. But China says it is not taking any chances. So China has remained consistent in that regard. But the thing to worry about China is the effect that all of this is having on China's economy, the second largest economy in the world, and the corresponding knock-on effect on the whole of East Asia and the rest of the world. Now, it's one of the reasons the World Bank IMF cited at their spring meeting for recalibrating the economic growth outlook for the year, dropping it from 4.2% to just about 3.4, 3.6%. But the effect is already being felt in the East Asian region. China says its projection is 5.5%. There are doubts about whether or not, you know, China can meet that economic growth outlook for the year 2022 because we have production cuts. Shanghai has been locked down for a whole month. Beijing, now they say schools will also be locked down. No date has been given for the resumption of the schools. But, you know, in Beijing, districts, up to about 6 districts have been shut down. And we may reach a point where maybe this very strategic city will also be shut down. So this is the effect, the impact on economic growth, both global and regional. And also the fact that when you combine this with disruptions many companies shutting down, and also the fact that there is a war in between Russia and Ukraine. So
right.
all of this is something I think that the rest of the world should watch very closely. Now, as for Moderna proposing 2 doses for the littlest kids, as they've been described, okay, yeah, the FDA says it will take a very thorough look and see which of the 2 major companies, Pfizer or Moderna, will be able to get first to the scientific finish line. Before now, persons above the age of 5 to 11, they use the 2 doses provided by Pfizer. But it's Moderna from the trials, what they are proposing. Now, the level of effectiveness is a bit low. It's between 40% and 50%. But Moderna is recommending to the Food and Drug Administration that it's better to take care of these children, even with 40–50% rate, to be able to prevent severe disease and hospitalizations. Yeah. And now that there's a lowering of restrictions, the lifting of some of the most stringent restrictions, children are more vulnerable. And that's why parents are saying, look, whatever you can do for these little children, it will help. Because what the records indicate is that about 475 children, in the United States have died since the pandemic began. When I say children, I mean children below the age of 5, according to the statistics. So that category is also vulnerable. So that's just about it. But in China, I forgot to add that the Politburo met yesterday, and they are saying, well, those economic issues that I brought up, that they're going to provide tax cuts, tax rebates, for small businesses and big industries. Well, we don't know how far that will go. What is certain is that China does not intend to abandon its zero COVID policy.
I've been wanting your thoughts today, so before we go super quick, on Matt Hancock's book and the timing thereof. I mean, he's writing a book about his pandemic experiences. Obviously, Matt Hancock was sacked as a health minister over that scandal, and he breached the COVID rules and what have you. What's your take on that?
I think he would not be saying anything we don't already really know, but it will make an interesting read. And it's good to see a book other than one on Donald Trump. I think I would read that.
Okay, I'll get it for you. When it's published, I'll send you one. Thank you, Adeswa.